Hello, my name is Max James Walker.
No, you're sitting down. You're sitting down. Welcome back, my name is Diana Mihailescu and I'll be the host. So, Max.
Hi.
Hi. A lot of people have heard about your film, I will say that. Quite a few people, but everyone that I've talked to, I've heard it.
The Coke film.
Yeah, what is it actually about?
Well, it's a film about a brick of cocaine. It's about Milo, who finds it in his bin, and his life just suddenly becomes very turbulent. Him and his friends, who they all think he's won the lottery, they're like, oh, this is amazing, let's have a great party. And he's like, no, this is a lot of coke. And they come to learn that it belongs to the town's kingpin drug lord. And this guy, he's not happy. He thinks it's been stolen, he's out for blood. So Milo and his friends, they've got to try and get it back without getting caught, whilst this notorious drug lord is trying to track them down and kill them. All the while, the police are trying to close in on this drug lord and they catch wind of the whole thing. So it's a crazy comedy crime drama.
Okay.
It was the most fun I've ever had on any set, making any film. And it was just the most wonderful group of people to work with and to come out with what we have made. I couldn't be happier.
Now, I know I was there for the script development with you the whole time.
Yes.
And I remember reading it for the first time and I was like, wow, this is actually funny. I'm really enjoying this.
It's nice that people find it funny because that's the whole hope of a comedy.
I remember it being like over 15 pages, about 20.
The original script was 20 pages.
How did you cut that down?
When it came into script development and working with Beth McCann, who, as you know, is a magician.
Yeah.
It was about pinpointing what was important to the story and what was more like exposition and what was just sort of like filler in there, what added to the story and what was just sort of there for the sake of being there. So there were scenes that were cut, there were things that changed throughout the development in terms of characters and who they were and their sort of personalities and things like that. In terms of the story itself, the story didn't change too much, it just sort of flowed in a different way. And with the end result of how it's paced, I'm over the moon with how it has become what it has become because it's a very easy film to watch in the sense that you breeze through it and watch it all the way through. When we've done like audience test screenings and when I've had people watch it, I think anyone who makes a film, the worst nightmare is someone's halfway through watching it and they get out the phone and they start looking at that instead. You want your audience to be engaged, so I'm really happy that everybody who's watched it has been so engaged with it. There was one day where we get to location and it was the climax scene, it was the park scene, and we were already over schedule on the day and we had to use a park which was like the only park we could get a permit for, and we get there and we realised that the location isn't that ideal because it's right next to a main road. The play park that we wanted to use was tiny and very limited. All that on top of added of like daylight being against us, and it's like a middle of the day scene, it needs to be bright. And we didn't have the dead cat for the mic because it was lost in my living room, and the only reason it was lost is because it was the exact same colour and texture of one of my fluffy pillows. It's the fluffy pillows, and nobody could find it, myself included. And then I get home and it's there after I sit on the sofa, and I couldn't help but laugh because I can't be mad at that. And when we did the reshoots, the park that we had was so much better, and we started so much earlier in the day, and it just looks. Anyone who watches the final film, it's the scene that the film deserved to have.
And I was there for the screenings. I remember seeing it. It was so funny. I really enjoyed it. I actually loved. I remember the high school scene.
Yes.
That was the one that I saw the biggest change in.
Yes.
That one was really long when I read it.
Yeah, the original high school scene, I think, was 2 pages, and it involved like a lot more character interaction, and it was a little bit more about the backstory of the characters. However, like I felt the story didn't need that much backstory. When it came to shooting, it was our last day of shooting, and the one long shot that we've got that people will see in the film was the last shot that we did for the whole film, and I couldn't have asked for a better shot to end it on because it was so much fun to do. The art department were absolutely incredible, dressed that set and came up with all the posters and everything that filled that room. So to sort of end the shoot with that day and that scene was I couldn't have asked for it to be any better.
I know you've made some other films. I know about Two Sugars. Wrote, directed, acted?
Starring.
How was that?
It wasn't the original intention for me to star in it. However, very last minute, we had an actor drop out and we were left with no other option. It was either I star in it or we don't have a film.
Yeah.
That was very interesting to do. It's an experience that I'm glad that I did, because it put me into the shoes of an actor, but it also put me in the shoes of an actor directing himself, which it's a really weird thing to have to do a performance and then cut and then rewatch yourself do this performance and give yourself mental notes, because it's not like, as you'll know with directing actors, it's not you sat here and saying you want this, this, and you're not giving it to someone else, you're giving it to yourself. It's not something that I think I will necessarily do again, but it was definitely there to learn with, and I'm really, really happy with how Two Sugars came out, because it was just a second year piece for an assignment, and the editor just put it on YouTube on a whim, and then it got 25,000 views with no advertisement and no promo or anything.
Just out of nowhere.
Just out of nowhere, which we were all sort of like, this is pretty crazy.
That is crazy, especially as just something for an assignment.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people do put their films that they make for assignments out on YouTube. 25K.
Yeah.
Wow. I will be honest, I only really met you in December. Haven't known you for that long.
Yeah.
I met you in directing class.
Yes.
And
what a class it was.
It really was.
Yeah.
That was so good. We learned so much. Such a good teacher. Chris Gaffey was.
Chris Gaffey. Anyone who has the opportunity to work with Chris Gaffey, jump at it.
Yeah.
He's completely changed my perspective on directing, and whilst I have directed throughout all of uni, it wasn't until first term when we had the directing fiction classes, it's completely shape-shifted in how I approach actors, how I approach a project, how to actually communicate with actors and what it is that you want. And I feel very lucky to have had that before approaching Bricked Up, because I would have approached it in a very different way, and the film probably would have turned out very differently. It's very important as a director to understand what it's like to be in an actor's shoes, because there are directors that I've worked with who they're very focused on something like camera, or they're very focused on a lot of the other aspects of filmmaking, which as a director you have to be aware of it. You're a director, you're making sure all elements of a project work together. But one thing that Chris especially was so adamant on is that you need to be actor focused as a director, because when you're on set, they are the people that you need to put your focus in. You have your head of departments, you have your DP, you have your AD, you have your sound people. They're all in charge of their own departments. So you are there with the actors, you have to put that focus into them. And to be an actor who's worked with directors where you're not really given many notes, you just sort of stood there not knowing whether you've done the take right, whether the performance was right, what more is needed to amplify the scene and make it better. You do just sort of stand there and you're a bit like, was it good enough? Was it what was needed for the scene? So to have those sort of negative experiences has made me a better director, because I don't want that to happen to my actors.
Yeah. Referring back to when you talk about departments, you did Bricked Up with a 3-man crew.
Yes.
How? Already giving me the shivers when I heard about it the first time.
It started as 3 and it grew. It was stressful. It was me, Xavier and Tom, who Xavier was editor, Tom was DP, and I was writer and director. And I think the biggest strain was on having the lack of a producer, because how do you not have a producer?
Yeah.
You need someone to produce
and
do all the paperwork, all
delegating.
those things. Yeah. So when it came to that side of it, being as actor focused as I am, I took on the responsibility of casting. Xavier did a lot of the organisational things and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. And then we had people like you, an absolute God save, and Gigi as well come onto the project, who, to be completely honest, it wouldn't have been made without the two of you. And I'm so eternally grateful to have had you on the project, especially as late into production as you came onto it.
We were happy to be there.
Yeah,
we really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you were, honestly, an absolute godsend. So it was definitely interesting to sort of have to step into those shoes of the producing side of things, because it wasn't really something that I'd done before. And with the casting side of it, I really enjoyed it because I'm a very actor-heavy director. I like to focus on my actors and build those good relationships. So to be able to be in contact with them before they even had the role right from the get-go was a real privilege to me, because I got to know these people and sort of start that good working relationship and come out of it with friendships and with people that I want to work with. Again, people who, this cast is the most talented cast I've worked with. Everybody on the cast is incredible and so unbelievably talented, and to be at this stage where it's, you know, it's my final year uni project and have the cast that we have and have the performances that they've given, I just feel so lucky and lucky to have been able to build that relationship with them. And, you know, I've said to all of them, like meeting them, there's nothing more awkward than getting onto set, not knowing someone and sort of having to do the whole, hi, I'm nice to meet you.
Introduction.
Yeah, it's nice to know someone beforehand. It's nice to feel a bit more comfortable beforehand, because it can be daunting to walk on a set and you've got all these people there that you don't know, and it can be quite anxiety inducing. So I like to make sure that everybody's comfortable even before walking onto set, because we all know being on set can be a very stressful thing.
Yeah.
So.
With your actors, what is your favorite thing to do to get them comfortable, to introduce yourselves and each other?
I just like going for a coffee or a drink or a chat or whatever you can do just to get to know each other a little bit. Inevitably, you're going to talk about the film, you're going to talk about the role. That's sort of a given as a director with an actor. But for me, I'm such a people person. I like to know people. I like to hear people's stories. I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller. I like to hear what people have to say. So for me to sit down with someone and get to know them a little bit, it breaks the ice, it breaks that barrier down, and I want to sort of get to know someone as a person, and I want them to sort of get to know me as well, because then when it comes to on set and it comes to that communication, that there isn't any awkwardness, there isn't sort of any uncertainty. You know each other a little bit by then, so it's easier to communicate and get across what it is that you want from them.
Stepping a little bit back into like younger Max, what made you choose film? Like, what pushed you towards it?
It's a really interesting story because, you know, I look back on my life and it makes so much sense for me to have come into film, but I felt for so long I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I've always been a creative person since a very, very young age, always been into art and that side of thing. And it was mainly when I was in school, I had a proper like nerdy, geeky video game phase through all of high school, but I was mainly interested in the kind of games that were very story heavy and very story based. And when it came to like choosing my options at school, originally I picked computer science because I was like, I want to go into coding and video game and that. I don't know if anyone's ever tried coding, it's a completely different language. It's just numbers on a screen to me. And instantly I was like, I've made a mistake here. So one of the only options that I could choose to swap it to was photography. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. And the reason that I picked photography was because of a video game at the time about a character called Max, who goes to uni to do photography. And ironically, the game called Life is Strange is about the butterfly effect. And it's crazy because me picking photography because of that video game led me onto doing photography at college. And then at college, I ended up doing media after dropping another subject. And through media is when I started to learn about the film industry a little bit. And then it was over COVID and the lockdown that I had this epiphany that I was like, why am I not doing film? Like, I have so much interest in all these different areas surrounding film and in storytelling. And then it sort of came from that, and here I am, like 4 years later from making that decision. Yeah.
And how about you being here? Alumni to be at University of Salford and executive at Memorisica. How do you feel about that?
Didn't expect that to happen, which there's a lot of things that have happened at uni that I didn't expect to happen. I feel like with you, Xavier and Gigi, we've found our own little family of filmmakers, and to have a team that is as close as we are, and to have found and formed these friendships over the past few months and have these incredible people to work with who are all so talented and so committed and so driven, for me is incredible. And I feel so lucky to have that, because one of the things that was so daunting for me when I thought about leaving uni a few months ago was that is going into it alone and having to figure that out on my own. And I feel like now we have our team, we have our little family, and we're all doing it together. And whilst it's still scary, it feels nice to be going into it with you guys.
I can say I'm very grateful. I did not expect this to happen.
I didn't either.
At all. As a production house, not an option.
Yeah.
And now look at us. Looking back, all the way back to first year, looking at all the other students that you've met, what would be like one thing you will tell a first year coming into film?
This is the time where you're able to have a play, figure yourself out, not only as a filmmaker, as a person. You should really enjoy your time at uni, however you want to do that, because we're never going to get these years back. Come to the end of it now and I'm like, it really did just fly by. Make those connections and make those friendships, because you go off into the industry and you're like, oh, I need to meet the right people, I need to do that. And I think it was like Greta Gerwig who said, you can meet those people whilst you're here at this stage. And I feel like I've met so many of those people. And there's so many people in our year group and in this film school who I just know are going to go so far and do so well. And to be able to say that I've worked with them, or I know them, or I've seen the things that they've made even at this stage, well, I feel really lucky to come here. I feel really lucky to have had the experiences that I've had at Salford.
Thank you so much for sitting down and answering my questions. And a round of applause for Max.